Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Brad Dorsey, coming out of California. And he's got a very interesting background in the film and the creative industry. And he's parlayed that into the real estate industry as an agent and also as a contractor. He's got a really interesting story coming from Texas into California, which we'll hear about. And I'm really happy to have him on the show for the audience. So, Brad, welcome.
Hey guys, my name is Bradley Dorsey. Chris, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. We talked a little bit a few minutes ago, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about helping other people, and so hopefully I can help your audience as well.
Yeah, we were talking backstage and we have a lot of commonalities. We're both from Texas and both love California. And so talk about your early journey and how you got into do what you're doing and how you ultimately settled on real estate.
Sure. So I actually grew up in Amarillo, Texas, which is the top of Texas and then Panhandle. And I remember being like 15 years old, and I was watching a late night infomercial. My mother was at the house. I was still living at home, and it was Carlton Sheets, and he was talking about no money down, investing in real estate and stuff like that. And I convinced my mother to buy this, literally on cassette tapes at the time, to buy it for me at 15 years old. And so we got these cassette tapes, and I would ride around in the car and listening to it and just learning about real estate. And I just was intrigued. I love the idea of doing it. My parents were entrepreneurs, so I already had that entrepreneurial spirit already built in me. And so it was a few years later, I ended up getting married in 2000, and we bought our first house. It was like our starter home in Texas. And my wife and we lived there about probably a year and a half. And I just knew that I wanted to invest in real estate. So I just told my wife, I'm like, what if we just put a for rent sign in the front yard, try to rent our house? And she thought I was crazy at the time. But I'm like, but we could have a rental property. She's like, where are you going to move to? I'm like, I don't know where we're going to move to. Let's just see if we can rent it first and then we'll figure that out. And so we did. So we put a for rent sign in our personal house in the front yard, and literally in a week had rented the property. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? So we moved in with our in-laws for like probably a month, searched for another house. We bought another house in Texas, moved to that house, lived there for 2 years. I said the same thing. Let's try to build our rental portfolio. Let's buy another house. So we did the same thing, ended up building a new house. And so we lived there for a little while. And honestly, my family was in the construction industry in Texas. So I just got busy. We actually focused on building houses. I ended up opening a restaurant in 2007 in Texas. And that's a whole nother story. I never worked in a restaurant in my life, never been a waiter, never worked in a kitchen. My brother and I were like, let's open a restaurant just because we had the entrepreneurial thing. So we did. And from the restaurant perspective, the thing that I learned that I think is valuable for myself and valuable probably for your audience is we opened this restaurant, hired a general manager that had been a general manager of a chain restaurant. He worked for us for a few months. And then finally he called me one day and he's, oh, I need to talk to you guys. So we went to the office, we sat down with them, and he just said, okay, this is just not working for me. And we were like, what's going on? And he's basically, when I worked for this other company, which was a chain restaurant, when every day when I went in, I literally shut my brain off because everything had a checklist, everything had a process, everything had a system. And so that was like a light bulb moment for us where we're like, okay, we're a new restaurant. It's so important to create those systems and processes because even though he'd been a general manager for 25 years in another major restaurant, he literally was just following somebody else's system, somebody else's process. And so now even investing in real estate, we're really focused on trying to create those systems and those processes and building a team so they can implement those for us. Just so real quick, fast forward, I ended up moving to California for a film industry. Like I said, a lot of stuff going on. I'm a SAG actor. I've done a lot of independent film stuff, produced some movies. My first movie that I was an actor in, actually, we shot in Houston and Beaumont, Texas. So that was cool. And then I moved to California, primarily working as a contractor, but I was working with other investors. And so I was always seeing other people make a lot of money off these flips. And I just never thought that I could do it because I didn't have a lot of money in savings. My credit wasn't perfect. And so I just never even pursued doing it myself. Unfortunately, in 2017, I went through a really bad divorce, ended up getting remarried in 2019. My wife was already a real estate agent. I was working as a contractor. We literally went to Cabo for our anniversary, and we were on the flight back, and I was talking to my wife. I'm like, what if we just try to do this ourselves and not just be working for other people? And so as soon as we got back, we started making offers on property in Los Angeles. And the last 4.5 years, we've bought and sold over $50 million worth of property ourselves. We currently have a vacation rental portfolio. We do Airbnb and Verbo. We own a hotel in Palm Springs that we're doing a multi-million dollar renovation on. It's been a really fun ride. I've learned a lot through the process, but I know it was a little long, so I apologize, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I've got for the audience the high net worth and the high income, and basically they put their money into real estate. That's what they do. It's like what the rich do is just that's tried and proven. And so you have another method, which was you are an agent, and then and then looked like you were also did a lot of construction projects. So that's another way to generate. My question for you is for the real estate market in general with the high interest rates, what's good? What are emerging niches? I know commercials struggling, data storage, industrial, these are new. What are your thoughts on the industry as a whole?
I think that's one of the things with real estate is you have to always be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to like pay attention to the market and changes in the market. But real estate's always good, right? It doesn't matter. Even in a recession, it's always good. You just have to be on the right side of it because that's the perfect time to buy property. Eventually, it's going to appreciate. It's going to be worth more. And you're going to, get rich over that. Yeah, I haven't got involved in it yet. I know I have some friends that are involved in the storage units. I know that's a really good niche to be involved in. Multifamily is always a great way to go. It's a little bit harder to get started unless you're working with another syndicator where maybe you have a little bit of money to invest with somebody else. So we're getting more into the multifamily side as well. Vacation rental market, I think, is always good, but you got to be really careful which market you're in. There's certain markets where they're really highly regulated. You can invest in a market, get a vacation rental that you post on Airbnb and Verbo and whatever, you're doing really well. And then all of a sudden, something can change with local ordinances or codes or whatever that can completely ruin that business. So you got to be really careful where you do that. For us, our primary business has been fix and flip. And I think that's a really good area for a lot of people to start. Whether you want to be an active investor or passive investor, there's always ways to be involved in a flip project. So for us, we're actively investing in real estate where we buy a lot of property, but we bring in outside investors and we offer them either some sort of profit participation or really good, like flat rate return on their investment. So there's always a way to get involved. I think you just got to go with whatever you're interested in. If somebody's interested in investing in multifamily or they were interested in flips or they're interested in long-term rentals, whatever that is, there's always a way to get involved in investing in real estate.
Yeah, I love that. And because I've read I'm always reading and studying, and there's this mantra in the stock market where it's buy and hold. There's the Warren Buffett, and then there's like the active trader, like the hedge funds, and buy low, sell high. Then on that churn, and seems like there's the corollaries in the real estate is either be a landlord, which I really hate being a landlord, but there's this, what you're doing is buy and renovate. So which is better for the long term, like this kind of passive landlord or this fix and flip? Because again, the passive landlord can take its toll if you just, again, it also has its advantages.
Yeah, totally. Again, I think it's different for every person, but I think I work with a lot of investors that have money, right? They have a good job, they're making good money working somewhere else, and they have funds they want to invest into a property. And they can just, all they care about is getting good return on their investment. And so if you have a good job already, don't quit your job, keep the job, use the funds that you're making. So even use your IRA. There's ways of doing like self-directed IRAs, stuff like that, where you can invest in other property. Find somebody that's successful what they're doing and invest in their projects. And then you're not having to really spend much time doing it. You said that you don't really like being a landlord, but I was actually on another show today, another podcast, and I was talking with someone that primarily works with people that invest in properties. They do turnkey. So they'll work with a company that completely renovates the property, has everything completely ready to go. They manage the property. They screen the tenants. They do every aspect. They manage any repairs. They deal with all of that. And then as you can be a passive investor, even as a landlord. So that doesn't have to be a bad thing. There's lots of tax advantages to owning property. You literally can create generational wealth by doing that. You can create what I call the cash flow, which is like basically mailbox money. It's residual income. So you can be working another job and be still making really good money off of real estate. Even to give you one example, there's been dozens of these, but just one example. one investor basically invested $150,000 in one of our flips. We had the property about 5 months. We did the major renovation, resold the property actually to an agent that's on Netflix is selling Sunset right now. That investor received when we closed escrow, they received their $150,000 initial investment back and they made almost $200,000 profit on top of that. That's a more than 100% return on the money in a 5 month period. It doesn't always happen, but real estate is just an amazing thing to be part of.
Yeah, it's almost because you're commanding and controlling a investment vehicle that's like in the hundreds of thousands or millions, and you can use leverage, and you've got tax advantages, and you can borrow against the collateral, so it gives you a lot of opportunities to get ahead. That's why the rich use real estate. That's why the rich get richer, because they know how to do that. And moving on is this idea with, especially, what are your thoughts on the NAR, this lawsuit basically cutting brokers' commissions in half, and how are people adjusting to that, adapting to that, and trying to look for alternative ways of making it as a realtor? Because a lot of realtors, they were making, big bucks, 6% commission, all of that.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Overall, I don't think it's a, sorry. I don't think it's a very, I don't think it's, I don't really think it's helping anybody. So I know that they originally said that this is buyers had the right to choose whoever or how much they're paying for their buyer's agent and stuff like that. But in general, with any industry, when you sell a product, you want that product to have the most exposure possible because that's how you're going to get the highest price for it, right? You're going to create the most demand for that particular product. That's how you make the most money. So in general, like I don't really agree with their decision. It's a weird thing for me because I'm a real estate investor, I'm an agent, I'm a contractor, everything. So I've looked at it from all perspectives and from a buyer's perspective. And in general, I think that things are not going to change a lot. Obviously, you have to have if you hire an agent, that agent, you have to have a buyer's rep agreement with them in advance. As a buyer, you have to decide, you have to let them know how much you're going to pay them in advance or whatever. But we've already been dealing with it. The law just went into effect a few days ago. We make multiple offers on properties every day. We have multiple properties under contract right now. And so it's basically just reaching out to the agent in advance, finding out if the seller is willing to offer some sort of commission for that property. And from what I've seen so far, is most sellers are still willing to offer some sort of commission to the buyer's agent because they know that that's how they can get the most exposure for the property is by being willing to pay a buyer's agent to do it. On the other side, I think as a real estate agent, I've had multiple real estate agents that have chosen to start investing in projects with us and fix and flip projects. And I think it's pretty interesting because it actually creates an opportunity for a lot of existing real estate agents to not just focus on working with buyers, but maybe they actually can start working as an investor in fix and flip properties. So it's created opportunity. It's also I think it's going to cause a lot of agents to not be able to stay in the business. So there's going to be less real estate agents overall. So I think in some ways, as long as you're willing to adapt, even as a real estate agent, some agents are going to be more successful because of the law change.
Yes, it's like with any industry, because it's like the ones that adapt and find new ways of, they're the ones that are going to flourish. It reminds me because like when I was purchasing real estate, my agent was actually an investor. So he would make his commission or whatever, but he was actually investing in real estate for his own portfolio. And yeah, it's really interesting. The other question I have for you is technology, because what's really interesting is like you got Zillow, Redfin monetize like kind of the data and the comps and the sales, and then you've got like Airbnb that kind of monetize, like basically achieve scale with other people's. How is technology going to change for agents and flippers, or do you see anything coming down that pipeline?
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I've spent the last several years. I've basically tried every program out there. I'm obviously a member of them. I'm a realtor, so I have access to MLS and everything. What's interesting is a lot of the time I feel like some of the third party or these other websites such as Redfin, Realtor.com, they're more user friendly than the MLS, which is crazy to me. So I use a combination of MLS, Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow. I check everything. There's about 10 other programs that I use to analyze deals and things like that. It'll be interesting because I do think, I don't know who it's going to be yet, but I do think that somebody will take advantage of this change with the National Association of Realtors. There will be somebody. It'll be interesting to see who it is. that's going to take advantage of it, create some sort of offer, some sort of opportunity, even for buyers and sellers. Maybe it's some sort of like lower, like flat fee type situation, something. There'll be somebody that'll completely eventually dominate this buyer's market because of this. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what it is, but I think it's incredibly important to always follow everything you possibly can, learn everything you can about all of the different people out there and different programs out there, and try to figure out how you can take advantage of it yourself as an investor. But I also think it's important to work with other people that are successful, that are good at what they do. If you want to be a passive investor, it's all about finding the right agent. It's about finding the right lenders. It's about finding everybody in that industry that are more successful than you are in that industry, and then be able to piggyback off of their success.
Yeah, really, you're like the first guest that's really offered, something out of this kind of thing. And what's interesting is because Airbnb and Uber and Lyft, they came out of the financial crisis. And like actually Airbnb was awesome because people could afford to stay in their homes by renting out their rooms, and it basically allowed people to achieve scale. So it's interesting to see the kind of like matchmaking between buyers and sellers. And hopefully you can cut these escrow and all these all these fees, kind of title insurance fees, all these kind of streamline it. How can people find you and follow you and reach out to you and check out your work?
Sure. Yeah. Our main thing, my wife and I are passionate about helping other people invest in real estate now. We love what we do, and we love transforming property. We love making money, and we love helping other people. Our website is flipmyfuture.com. It's all about changing your life, changing your future, creating generational wealth. You can find us on Instagram at Flip My Future, Facebook, Flip My Future. We'd love to talk to your audience as well.
Yeah, I love that. And for the audience, be sure to give Brad's socials a like and follow. Check out his company website, see the work that they do, reach out to him. And thanks so much for coming on.